Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan. How are you today, Logan?
Oh, I'm trying to get over this sinus bug or whatever this is. It's been awful. So,
Yeah, I was gonna
um,
say I don't know if there is a sinus bug.
yeah, no, it's just sinuses at that point,
It's
isn't it?
sinuses,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the good thing is typically with sinuses I can think well through things. With head colds, I become useless. But so that's when I know the difference. So I can feel it all in here, and I'm not usually sick, so
Well, so that's what
it's
we'll say. So if Logan says anything dumb or that you disagree with, it's a head cold. All
it's a
right,
head cold.
he's
Yeah,
he's got brain fog.
right.
If he is right on the money, it's just sinuses. So
Hmm. Correct.
drop in the comments below what you think his affliction is based on what his takes are later in the
Right.
show. This will
Are
be
you,
our first of a series called State of the Union, and this will be our kind of state of the player pool type of thing, where we're going to look at a position and kind of give our thoughts on the positions, looking ahead to 2026, and um, you know who we see taking that position by then, and also who can currently be in it for like something like Copa later this year.
Yeah, we got competition galore coming up, Jordan. So we thought this would be a good time to start to jump in to said U.S. men's national team, and we're starting to do these Sunday Fun Day episodes where we're going to be covering all sorts of different things. But we thought we'd get into some U.S. men's national team because we got a bunch of news, we got a bunch of different things we're going to talk about today that'll impact probably the pool going forward. And man, lots to dive into. And Jordan, I remember last time we were covering World Cup, 2 years out, it felt like it got quickly to us, like 2022 got to us really quickly. So that happens in June, and soon we'll be talking, oh man, now we're about a year and a half away from really ramping up to World Cup stuff.
Yeah, and we have a lot building up to that. Copa this year, next year the Club World Cup, uh 2026 World Cup. So I mean, we're going to have tons of little
Gold Cup too.
benchmarks and stuff that we're going to be hitting, and events we're going to be having in
Mm.
2024 and stuff, like here in the States in 2024 and 2025. And we'll hopefully be covering all of that on the podcast. Um, yeah. All right. So, so I think Copa starts. I have a countdown actually. Let me pull that up real quick because I have to find out when it starts because my wife is due around that time. Okay, never mind. It starts on the 20th. So I think the final is like 2 days before my wife is due. So our Copa America coverage should be mostly uninterrupted if everything goes as planned.
Yeah, I've got to find like a temporary host when that time comes. So
Yeah. Yeah. Good
have to
luck with
find
that.
somebody. Yeah, I have to find somebody. I don't know who. I don't even know who would. If you're interested and you're out there listening, and you want to jump on while Jordan's temporarily down for the count when the child is born.
Yeah.
That'll be maybe he can step in. She can step in. He, she, he.
It's he. It's Landon.
That's
Yeah.
right. I forgot. I was
Landon
like,
can
what?
step in.
There we go. There's that brain. There it is. That head
Oh
cold.
my
That's
God. Yeah. So it's a head cold. Oh God.
it.
All right. So I guess if you wanted to kind of explain what we're doing here on the first of this series and maybe why you chose to start with strikers.
Yeah, I think that strikers, when we've talked about it in the past, it was the one that we really highlight as being crucial to U.S. men's national team going forward. And I think with all the interesting options that we have currently in the pool, and they've gotten progressively better and they've gotten older and their experience is gaining. I thought it would be interesting to jump into U.S. men's national team strikers because I think it's the biggest hole that we have to fill. So I'm interested to see what your thoughts are, what our thoughts are together, what we kind of come up with. The idea is to give 10 strikers. So we got 10 strikers that we've listed based off of the sources that I've kind of gathered. And it's 10 people that I think I probably would have picked if you gave me the list. But we picked 10. We're going to come up with our top five. And then Jordan, you and I can try to break it down into our depth chart, however we want to do that top three, top five together on what we think might be the U.S. men's national team striker depth going forward in 2026. But we're using today's play, what they're doing currently with their clubs and where they are. That's a good thing to catch up on where they are playing, because I think a lot of people lose track of them while they're out of U.S. men's national team camp. So we're going to update you on where they are, what they're doing, how it's going, and then going forward and building our depth chart. We're going to do that with all the rest of the spots, but I think the rest of the spots are a lot easier because I think we've
Mm-hmm.
got heavy favorites in all those other spots. So there might be some center back debate, but I think this one's a real challenge. I think because of all the options and nobody's really stepped up yet.
All right, uh, so how do you want to do this? You want to look one by one first, and then
Yeah.
kind of form a consensus three after that? I think we should do top three because that is going to be how many we probably take with us
Okay.
to
Yeah.
2026. So I feel like that's probably where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think we can start by reflecting on who the U.S. men's national team took last time in the World Cup in 2022, and they had Jesus Ferreira, Josh Sargent, and then Haji Wright. So those were the three forwards as far as strikers were concerned that the U.S. men's national team deployed in 2022. And Jordan, what were your thoughts overall as far as like those strikers that we brought? I know that was a cause for concern because they really didn't do much. But what were your overall thoughts on those three? Do we feel confident that those three are going to be the same three, possibly?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not confident that those are the going to be the same top three. So, uh, Haji Wright was the surprise, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was the surprise one. We all kind of thought it was going to be Pepi,
Hmm.
um, but it wasn't. And it's really hard to judge our strikers with Greg's play. If you just look at Greg Berhalter's history, it's not really conducive to strikers,
Right.
right? Um, Usually struggling to score goals. That's other places than the U.S. I know you could say, well,
Hmm.
they're struggling to score goals at the U.S. because of the lack of striker, and I think that's part of it. I feel like we have probably, for some reason, since we've lost Dempsey, and even before Dempsey, when we had Josie, this position has been marred by injuries consistently. Just I I don't know what it's kind of like when I would watch like the Ravens for the last like 2 years before this year when they fired their strength conditioner. The Ravens were always just having injury issue, injury issue, injury issue. We're like almost the whole team's on IR and you're like, what are we doing wrong? And I don't think it is anything that we're doing wrong. But even if you like take a look at not the strikers and you look at how Pulisic's been his injury history, right? And then you look at the strikers and you're like, Josie's down. You know, we'll talk about DK, we'll talk about Pefok, and just like Sargent had injury histories at times, right? So like there's been these things that have always kind of contributed, I don't know, since 2014 of like not having strikers at the right time that are healthy. And then that's what makes you rely on somebody like Clint Dempsey at 30 plus, right? Years old. And why the player pool in 2018 wasn't really, I mean, even if you wanted to count Jordan Morris, which he's not on our list because he's more of a winger now. But when he was kind of coming up in that time of 2018, he was at college kind of playing in the striker role for the club, for the team here. He's since had a lot of injury issues, right? So there is like this uh almost like we're snake bit when we talk about certain positions in the national team view of things. So I think we're gonna hopefully have more options for 2026. I wouldn't be shocked if we get somebody that isn't on this list at some point that just comes out of nowhere. I know we've been saying that previously, but that Haji Wright thing kind of felt like it came out of nowhere into 2022. And he actually did score a World Cup goal. We'll talk about that when we get to him a little bit more, but I just don't think we're probably seeing these three. I don't want to spoil my picks, but I would say you're going to maybe see some or one of these into 2026, but you're not going to see all three of these again uh, in the same World Cup squad.
Yeah, that's all really good points. I love the talk of Josie Altidore just because there was a reliance upon him. And then when he got hurt in the World Cup, it felt like it did. It felt like that was like the nail in the coffin for that team. And I felt, there was a lot of talk of like, can he at least just play 45 minutes? Because that's all we really need. And we don't really have a backup striker that we feel confident in. And I think that was Wondolowski in behind him at that point. But it felt the U.S. men's national team, Jordan, has always felt like they've lacked that dominant scorer. And like you said, Greg Berhalter's MO has always been they play well defensively. They're pretty good collectively, but he's not known for, this attack-minded team that's going to bully you, score a lot of goals. And that seems to be the way that world soccer's gone. I mean, if you look at the teams that they're going to be up against, like if they went up against an Argentina, if they went up against Brazil or France, like all those teams are going to get goals. England, like they are so attack minded, and they lack some in defense. Where I think the U.S. men's national team stands up pretty stout defensively, and we saw that in the World Cup where they held their own with a bunch of the big clubs. And I think that is a huge strong suit for the United States with Tyler Adams, and then you have Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman back there. You've got Reynolds. You've got tons of options back there defensively, and that's never been the issue. We've always looked to the issues going forward in the attack, and Christian Pulisic is going to be that creative style player where he's the one that's going to get you goals, but he's not somebody that's going to score a ton. Same thing with Gio Reyna. Like that's not his sweet spot. So they rely so heavily on their wingers and their midfielders to create and basically score. And this has always just been like a spearhead without a sharp point for the United States. And so I'm interested to see how going forward how this works. But it seems like Jordan. I mean, Greg did say like when he got hired back with the United States, and he's officially been announced that he does realize that there's a concern with the formation which they're playing in a 4-3-3 because it just doesn't feel like it works as well. So he said that he'd play a little bit with it, but Jordan, I don't. He's not one that really changes his methods. He's kind of that stuck in his way kind of coach. So I don't know. We'll see. But I'm interested to see what your list looks like because I think we've got some great options as far as number nines are concerned. But even 2 or 3 goals, Jordan, in group stages, and then 1 or 2 goals in the round of 6, like that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for this guy to come in and be like a Lewandowski or Wando, what is his name?
Wondolowski, yeah.
Thank you. There's that brain again. I was like struggling.
We're diagnosing you with head cold right now.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm interested, Jordan. I'm excited because this is a lot of fun to create these notes, and I'm sure that you probably had some fun with it, looking over as to who you want to put in the striker position.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say fun because it is still my worry going into 2026. And look, here's the thing: World Cups they don't usually score a lot, right? Like a striker,
that's true.
Maybe gets like the top goal scorer usually
6
gets
to
like
8, maybe
6 goals, right?
Yeah.
6, 7 goals. Now they might get more because there's going to be more rounds now and more games, right? Because there's going to be more teams. But you're usually looking at the sweet spot of like 6 to 8 goals. And a lot of those are starting to come from tens. I feel like like Messi and players of that caliber that Pulisic's probably going to get a couple, like you said, and
right.
Hopefully help you that way. But overall, we just weren't scoring a lot. I still felt pretty good about 2022. What we did, we should have beat Wales, right?
We got back into it.
We drew England,
yeah,
and then you end up beating Iran. You got through,
yeah,
right? And then Netherlands was the real frustrating one. That game was the frustrating one where you're like, we're not even like playing well right now. But it's kind of be expected for me, honestly. Some people, for some reason, think we have. I saw somebody say we would win the Asian Cup, and look, South Korea and Japan are not winning that Asian Cup, and they're probably at times like Japan's better than us. At times they beat
Yeah,
us in a friendly recently, right? Like
right. Smashed us. Yeah.
I don't know how you said smashed us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Japan.
first I thought I heard fascists, and I was like, "What?" Okay,
No, I'm not calling the no. Japan smashed us. Yeah, it's the sinus. No, he's
okay. I was like, "Wow, all right."
wow. Logan's taking an extreme on his podcast. He's got Alexi Lawless on us.
So I thought that uh, some people have this like hubris of we should be better than a lot of these nations. And for the way I still look at it is we have that history, right? You can look back in 1950 when we beat uh England or whatever. But it's not the same because then we had a huge downturn of just not playing at high levels, missing World Cups. I'm really curious on
I
what
thought,
Logan's laughing at
yeah,
there.
I
But
think I thought you were gonna say in the 1940s we beat Japan in World War II. That's what I was like. Where's he going with this? I got you now. Okay.
no, but then we had like a
Yeah.
huge downturn of just like not making World Cups,
Yep.
not having a league, right? Like we had the
Yep.
NASL until like it collapsed, and then we had nothing until MLS came up, and then so your players are only playing at high levels when they go overseas. People can crap on MLS all they want, but players here are still playing at a level that they were not playing when we were missing those World Cups. So we kind of had this setback, huge setback of our soccer identity. So Netherlands have been playing nonstop. They've been, you know, a team, and they've reached World Cup finals and stuff. I can't sit here and be like, oh, we should have beat Netherlands. Were they weaker than 2010? Yeah, of course, but they're still a good team. And when you get to those European teams that have it in like their DNA and their blood, it's tough to say like, oh, we should have beat them in the round of 16. So I can't judge us on that. And people saying again, like, this is what drives me nuts, Logan, is when people say, like, if we don't get to the semis of Copa America, Greg is gone. I'm like, we don't even know what the draw is. We don't know who we have to face. If we draw Argentina in the quarterfinals, are we supposed to beat them? They're the world champs. No, we're not going to beat them. Maybe on a one-off, we can. We can. I'm not saying we can't. We can if everything goes our way. But I'm not going to be like, well, if you don't beat the world champions, you're out, dude. Like that's tough. It's really tough to do. So I totally get where people are frustrated. We didn't want Greg back. I now have to back him because I'm not going to be somebody that's just constantly shitting on the manager because there's nothing I can do about that. I have to like look at what the results are going to be going forward, what choices he makes going forward. 2022, I thought was a good step. I wanted somebody to come in and take us to the next step, but I don't know if that person was out there. I know people are like, go out there and get
Totally
this guy.
agree. Yep.
It's just like the players want it, Greg. Fine. The federation was fine with Greg. All right. It seems like they did have my biggest complaint that if we were going to bring him back earlier and not just have this lame duck interim coaches for however long we did, where nothing really happened in that. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no. Why are we having interim coaches in tournaments then when if we were just going to end up with Greg anyway? Put him back in, get him to call in these people so they have familiarity with him and his playing style instead of just kind of messing around with coaches that are not going to be there. So that was my biggest complaint with the thing is like either rehire him. The investigation was a sham. I'm sure we can probably agree to that. They just I felt like they wanted to delay announcing him back because of the investigation, and then or hire somebody else. So it's either bring him back earlier, hire somebody else. I felt like we kind of lost a year. Same thing when they were trying to find Greg. We had like interim coaches at that point before Greg took over, and then they just settled on Greg, and you're like, okay, but we lost a whole year after a failure of a World Cup in 2018 where we didn't qualify. We lost a whole bit just playing games with not our real coach. Like, that's the stuff that's driving me mad about the U.S. men's national team and kind of the U.S. Soccer Federation. They've kind of rectified that with the women's team, because they've locked in Emma Hayes already, and she's going to be there after the Chelsea season. And it's like, great, at least we know that. But it seems like when they're hiring American coaches, especially the men's side, they kind of wait a whole year, and then they just pick the most uh the most disappointing one. I don't want to say that because like I'm not like anti Greg like a lot of people. It's just I remember being a little underwhelmed when maybe that's what I was saying instead of disappointing, underwhelmed. I remember waiting for that to be announced, and then they announced Greg Berhalter, and you're like, why'd that take a year for us to figure out? So kind of same thing with when they rehired him. It's like, why did it take 6 months, 7 months to be like, yeah? And then once they did hire him, they're like, well, we're still gonna let the interim coach this tournament. What? Like, so all of that to say, I know that has nothing really to do with the striker pool, but it kind of does when you're looking at the coach needs to be able to see these players. And when you just have like this 7 month period where the coach is not doing anything because you don't have one, and all these players are still coming into these tournaments, you're like, all right, I guess he's going to review the tape later. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of mind boggling. And I'm hoping that after 2026 and he's gone, I'm assuming Greg will be gone. It's like 2-term presidencies. Sorry, you're out. You're not eligible next time. I don't feel like a national team coach should be there longer than that usually anyway. And they find somebody, if they take a long time to hire somebody, hopefully they find the right person, is all I'm saying. Like, either go with your gut and pick who you want it to begin with, or cast a wide searching net. I think this time there was a wide net, but they realized a lot of the choices they wanted were probably not interested. People like Jose. I don't know if we were really interested in him, but like that type of thing where you're like, oh, we need the big name. So all of that to say, Jurgen Klopp 2026, come on down.
Yeah. Yeah, he's taking a break, Jordan. Sounds like everybody in Europe's going to be taking a break at this point. So the U.S. will have an open shot at some of the best coaches that have ever coached, because it sounds like all of them will be out of a job by the end of the year, because they've gone into, I think a lot of them are taking breaks. Man, it's just so destructive. I think some of
it's
the time.
draining. Club football is draining with all the competitions.
Yeah.
National team, you have those time off where you're just like, I'm going to go watch this guy play.
Yep.
And you don't have a camp. That's like the good thing. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's jump into the striker pool and the striker list, because I think that's our next step here. And I thought it'd be interesting to start off with the guys that, at least two of the guys that were there last season, that I think some people have on their short list of people that we have as far as options are concerned in 2026. But Jordan, let's start with Jesus Ferreira. Jesus, why maybe they pick him is because he does a lot in the midfield. He's more of a creative, I guess, 9, as you would put it. More, I think, suited for Greg's system than probably some of the other strikers on the list, just because of how good he is at hold-up play and how great he has been in helping the attack in Dallas. He also does the same thing for U.S. men's national team, and he's not really that prototypical striker where he's just goal-oriented. He is physical. He likes to press. He likes to get after and make the other team make mistakes, and I think that's what's benefited him tremendously in his career. I know he did that with against Miami in the preseason game they just had, and he got a goal. Jesus has looked great in the last 2 seasons, Jordan. He's got 30 goals and 10 assists with FC Dallas in the last 2 years, and really he's carried that team. Like, he's put them on his back, and he's really carried FC Dallas to being a really competitive team in the Western Conference here in our league. If you like Jesus Ferreira, you like him because, he's not only just going to win you balls, but he's going to get and create difficult spots for the defense. And I think that's part of what makes Jesus so tempting for Greg to put in on the roster. And so I think that's why Jesus is featured quite a bit. And honestly, I think it's he's turned more into Greg's guy than I think most of the other ones on this list. But I think there's a lot of different options out there right now where he might fall further down in that depth chart. So I just want to get your thoughts on Jesus and what you think about Jesus going forward, because I think he's an intriguing option for Greg, to say the least.
What I want to see from Jesus Ferreira is the next step.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The next step. What worries me, Logan, we've talked about this on the FC Dallas preview, is that Moscow, right? Was it Dynamo Moscow or Spartak Moscow, I
Yeah,
believe,
Spartak. Yeah,
tried to purchase them for $13 million. Now, they couldn't because of just sanctions and stuff like that. But what worries me is that, not that he was going to go there. I think he would have probably, that would have been a good step. Playing wise, maybe not where he's living wise, right? But the Moscow, like the Russian leagues, do have some good, play some good football at times. What worries me is that was seemingly the only team interested, or that would have matched that amount. He needs to, and we're advocates for Major League Soccer. We podcast about it. I'm not like a Euro snob, but I do think at his age, he's what, 22, somewhere around there.
23. Yeah,
23.
yeah.
He needs. This is the age when you need to make the jump, I think. 25, you're going to start being too old for the European teams, at times. So this would be the year you need to make the jump. So that way you can kind of settle in. So let's say summer, he needs to leave. He needs to settle in with his club over the course of the summer and training and preseason, and then get ready. And he won't be able to, though, too, because he's going to be in Copa probably, right? So that's a worry. But then he's going to have to then adjust to the new league he's in, start producing, and hopefully be ready for 2 years from then to be playing in the form of his life for 2026. I don't know if that's going to happen this time. If not, next year he really would need to go at 24. Really need to go. Otherwise, I think you can have a player like this from MLS on the roster, of course, but he would need to be continuing to crush it with how many goals he's been putting in. And he would not be the starting striker, I think, because I just don't know. I would not have him, if we're talking about our top 3 for 2026. I don't have him in it. I don't. Unless if he makes that move and can prove that he can adapt to a higher level of play. Again, not saying this as a Euro snob or anything like that. It's just the reality of, we're going to want our best strikers to be there, the best players, for 2026. This is the time to make the impact, because it is going to be here in America. You want to make a run. You want to make like a deep run. And deep doesn't mean like semis. I think a quarterfinal run would be great to get people in this country really excited about the prospects of this team going into 2030, and just getting those kids that are watching in 2026 to say, I want to play soccer. I don't want to play football. I don't want to play basketball. I don't want to play baseball. I want to be a professional soccer player. That then gets those kids, so we have another golden generation in, what would that be, like another 10 years from then. That's kind of the goal on what you want to hit here. And to do that, I think you need to have the best players. And while he is probably one of the best strikers in MLS, I do think to be able to be a starting striker in this team by the time we get to 2026, he's going to have to be playing overseas and scoring goals.
Yeah. And I think, Jordan, like you said, you make a good point. And I think if he goes to a European club, he's not the striker that European clubs look for. The European clubs are much more attack-minded, goal-scoring, goal-threat kind of clubs. And it's really hard to try to find a team out there that rely on their 9 to be he's almost more of a midfielder, and he only scores because I think he plays kind of a second striker, which they don't typically deploy in a lot of those English and German leagues. There's a lot of just that guy, and he's not really a winger. He doesn't really play in
I
those
think that
positions.
does play overseas though, because like I feel like yeah, I feel like sometimes having like the nine that's almost like a false nine almost fits in rather well over there compared. It depends on what league. Like if he goes to the
Yeah,
championship, no. Championship's going to be huffing it up,
right.
head the ball in, like old school English football of whip the ball on the box, let me head it in there. On most championship teams and relegation fodder teams, if he's going to a place like Spain or a top English league that English team in the Premier League, which he wouldn't get into those teams. But like if that's where he's going, where they play more of like, before City had Haaland, right? It was a lot more of not a target
Yeah,
guy up top. It was a guy that could kind of drop back, be able to get the ball, move forward, the way that Jesus Ferreira can do. So I do think it could work. It's just it would mostly be on fit. Where is he gonna go when he goes there? And when you look at players like Gio Reyna ending up at Nottingham, sometimes you're like, oh, maybe that's not the move to make right now.
yeah, no, and that's true. Football is all about fit, and it's about, especially there, just because, like you said, I mean, we've had guys go places where like, why is he coming off the bench? Like Ricardo Pepi hardly broke at Augsburg, and I think that was because they just didn't know what they were doing. And I think the U.S. and MLS clubs are very guilty of selling players to places that they aren't fits, just because the price tags, it's hefty, and they're not used to getting that much money, especially interleague. Um, but yeah, I think you make a good point, though. I think Jesus has qualities, but I think there are a lot of qualities lacking in what they're going to need going forward in 2026. He's not a guy that moves the needle, and that's my concern for him. Moving on into the next striker, Jordan, is Josh Sargent. And Josh has come back into his own. He had struggled with some time off, but now that he's back, Jordan, he's got 7 goals in 11 games. He started 9 for Norwich City, and Jordan, he's starting to look like what they thought he would look like. I think he's starting to kind of come into his own. He looks to be a guy that's always going to be threatening in the box. He's very strong. He heads balls in, kicks them in. He does everything. He presses pretty well. He's a bigger guy, more physical than Jesus is going to be. But I mean, Josh has really turned it on in the championship, and I think he's starting to make a good case for possibly being that number one guy that Greg maybe leans on. But we'll see as we kind of get into the depth whether we think so or not. But I don't know. He's got a good resume going into some of the camps coming up.
13 goals last year, 7 this year. Like you said, 7 in 11 games. He had 13 and 40 last year. So he's at a better pace this year. Um, he's only 23, right? Which is what we said Pepi is, but he's already adapting to the overseas flow of things, Josh Sargent. So he's kind of ahead of the game there. This would be my pick of right now. If we were playing a meaningful game right now, so Copa, he's the starting striker. I think he can play the style that the rest of the players that are A team can play. He's going to go, like you said, he's kind of the most, um, has like the most characteristics that you would want in your striker. I believe he has a kid now. I believe he's married, so he's already like maturing at that rate. He's, uh, 'cause that's one thing you'd worry about. Like, oh, they're having a kid. Like, are they going to be up late and like not sleeping as well? He's already adjusted to all of that now. He's scoring goals. He's playing well. He scored yesterday, right? So like he is on fire right now, and he is my pick of who I'd be like right now. We have a meaningful game. Sargent is starting. He's getting goals. He's playing well. He's Norwich fans are really starting to dig him, right? Like I always see about them tweeting about him under the goal, like them saying that he scored a goal or whatever. People loving Josh Sargent over in Norwich. And this is fine too. He doesn't have to make a leap to another big club. I mean, he could at some point. He's only 23, but like I kind of like when our players are ingrained in the club a bit, where the people are like, "Oh, we love him." And it's not like Weston McKennie lead situation where he's over there for half a year and then they kind of despised him and he's gone again. Like, get into your club, get that feel with the club. I really like that. So, yeah, I mean, playing in Germany for a bit, he was so young and just didn't. He scored some goals. Like, his best was 2020 to 2021 when he scored 5 goals and 2 assists. Then he kind of, trailed off a bit when they got relegated, and then he got the loan to loan/buy to I believe it started as a loan to Norwich in the Premier League. Only scoring 2 goals and 1 assist in that, but he only played 26 games. But now he's really finding his feet, and I think that's one thing that, like, when you're in a relegation battle, a lot of times they're not going to give you the opportunities to really prove your worth. They want to be able to make sure that they get a player out there that is going to score them goals. So he kind of didn't get that opportunity as much. And it was like his first time adapting to to English football was in a relegation battle while he's 21 years old trying to figure it out. So in comes the relegation to the championship, and then he's starting to play a bit more. He's starting to flourish a bit more on his game and getting opportunities. Yeah, so I really like how much he's scoring right now. Like you said, he can kind of do it all, and I feel like right now he is the option if we're looking for an option.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think right now you're picking a number 9, and he's the one. And he's so scrappy, he's so physical. He's exactly what Greg likes. I think he was the one that Greg has kind of pinpointed as the guy. If he really started to turn it on, he would be his choice, because it did feel like when we'd come out of like camp or something like that, or they hadn't been in camp in a little bit, it seemed like he always kind of floats to the top. Like, he's the one that Greg just goes with based off of, especially if they're not in form, if they're, it's a summer camp and they're not playing, especially in Europe. He seems to be the guy that Greg picks to lean on when you need just some consistency. And I think that's what Josh offers. And he was hurt in that round of 16 game. And I think, he's such a stable factor up there where he doesn't seem like somebody that's going to make mistakes. And I think that's what you really have to rely on in some of these competitions. He's not one that's really going to, whereas I think Jesus' decision-making sometimes can be a little bit difficult for him. I don't think that's really a thing with Josh. Like, I feel like Josh, like you said, out of the bunch, if I'm looking at this, he's played with the U.S. men's national team. He's in that generation where it's kind of forgotten. Like, he's a little bit older than these guys that are coming through now, like 21, 22. He's more of like where I guess Weston is, Tyler is. Like, it feels like he's got more experience, and he's not really dazzled and razzled by the situation. And I think that's ultimately a benefit and a factor going into choosing a World Cup roster. But like I said, I think you're right, Jordan. If I'm picking a number 9 right now, he's at the top of the list because of his form. All right,
Yeah.
next one. All right, so we're going to move on to Balogun, Jordan, and this one is really interesting because he was not available for selection really the last time because he's in between clubs. He had determined which club he would want to play for internationally. He has decided the United States. And Jordan, I think he was the most hyped striker, and I would say is the most hyped striker on this list because of his output last season with Reims. It's not been the same in Monaco. So there's people going, well, now what, man? This guy had such a huge year last year, and he's not been the same since going to Monaco. And we can kind of talk about that. But he really is the guy. Like, talent-wise, I think skill-wise on paper, this is the one that I think a lot of people say he's got the skill to be that number 9 we've always been missing, and that top generational talent of a striker. It just hasn't come together for him yet this year. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on Balogun, where you kind of place him. Is he somebody that we're really considering to compete as a top striker for this list? And I guess what do you think of his year this year, since it was such a downfall from last season?
Kind of like you said, it's a little expected because he goes to Monaco, who's a much better place than Reims, right? So
Yeah.
his issue there is going to be kind of breaking in, like you said, getting
Right.
that playing time. His he played 34 starts last year. 33.3 of them was 90 minutes that he played. So
Yeah.
He was playing almost the full games. 11 starts, 10 of them around 90 minutes, 10 and a half. So I guess a game or two he's been subbed out. Then you have 15 matches played, 4 of them where he's probably just uh, coming in right to the game. He's only got 945 minutes right now. But if you look at this is a top flight league compared to his Middlesbrough loan in 2021, 2022, where he had 891 minutes, 18 matches played, 9 starts, 3 goals, 3 assists. He's actually producing better in the less amount of games with 4 goals, 3 assists. So just one goal better, but it's about his usual pace, right? Last year kind of seems more of the unusual pace, but he was also playing more. His team needed him more. Monaco, they're what, 5th place right now. They're a team that's usually more in the higher end of the table compared to last year where his club finished 11th. So they're going to have better quality. He's not going to get as many chances. That just comes with the territory. I think he is still like the number 2 option. I think at some point he can become the number 1 option, but also when you look at this is only his 2nd year ever really in the top flight. Like, yes, he had 2 games in the Premier League before when in 2021, 2022, 2 matches played, 1 start. He only played 70 minutes total though. This is his first, like his 2nd full season with a club in a top flight league. And that is going to be the defining point. His production's kind of about the same as what it was in the championship, so he's not like he's losing anything in that regard. He's kind of like, that's like his base, I would say, that we can kind of project outward from. But when he's playing on a tougher team, like a better team, he's not going to get as many chances. 2nd full season, people maybe even know how to defend him better and how to stop what he's doing a little bit better, since he's not like, he was out of nowhere last year, just boom, right? He was like a Arsenal prodigy. He goes to Reims, right? And then goes and just absolutely put on a show in the same league. The only concerning thing is that he is in the same exact league as last year and is struggling a little bit more. But sophomore slump is a real thing. This could be something he just bounces back from next year. Or maybe Monaco's not the right fit. Maybe he does go somewhere else after this. He's still only 22. I do think he can still come back from this. He's not done. He is struggling just a little tad, but I think he'll be fine. And I think if we're looking at 2026 or even this year in Copa, I wouldn't actually be surprised if he's the starting striker in Copa and that Sargent's the 2-man. But with the form right now, I would go opposite. But I totally think this guy's still going to get the call as long as he's not injured.
Yeah, I think what you said is right. He's not had as quality of shots looking at his advanced stats. He's had about the same number of shots, but again, they play more possession football. So possession football, for those that don't know, it's much more calculated. Whereas at Reims, they were just going nuts. Like they just thrive off of chaos, and then he's a chaos merchant. I think that's part of being young too. Like part of being young is like you don't really have any fear because you're just going after it. And I think that was part of it. This year, Jordan, like you said, I think the biggest thing is he not only goes from Reims to Monaco, which is a big jump, but he stayed within the same league. And when you play in the same league, teams are going to figure out what you're doing. Like it's not like he's going to Germany and they're like, oh, here's a new striker we got to figure out and a play style that we have to figure out. They have figured him out, and like you said, Monaco is going to go up against teams that are fighting against them because they're a top 5 team in that league this year, and they're going to go up against PSG. They're going to go up against some of these big clubs that really try to take advantage of what Monaco is and they're going to play them tougher. Like there's not many. I would say, Jordan, there's also this feeling in sports where if an 11's going against a 13 or 11's going against a 9, like they're going to play each other pretty similarly. Whereas, and there's a little bit of like, okay, we can play not our best against an 11 and win. Whereas when you're playing against a top 5 team in a league, you're going to get their best effort every single time out, it feels, right? So there's that. There's a sophomore slump. He's 22. He's not, it's not like he's taken a big step back. He's just not been as great, obviously. And it was such a good year last year that, maybe that he does score some goals that maybe he doesn't score typically. It just, luck of the draw. And you see this quite a bit with strikers. They have a good year. They have a year. They're like, oh, it's not as good as last year. And then they'll bounce back. So I've got no issue in him, having 4 goals at this point. I think once he starts to get more integrated at Monaco, and like you said, fits everything. If it's not a good fit for him, then he moves on. And we see that so many times where, teams just aren't good fits for some of our players. Like Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea was the place for Christian Pulisic. He goes and he finds a good team in AC Milan, and now he's thriving. So again, I'm interested to see where he ends up. I'm interested to see where all that skill comes together, because I still think, like you said, he's the number 2 currently behind Josh as far as like who I'd put out there right now if I had to pick a list. But I'm interested to see where he goes for it, because I think his ceiling is a lot higher than some of these other players on this list. All right, next up on the list, Jordan, Ricardo Pepi, the black sheep of the family, because he was out last year, and a roster snub, like you've alluded to earlier when we were talking about Jesus. But Ricardo Pepi, Jordan, he's in the Eredivisie. How do you say that again?
Eredivisie.
Thank you. He's now with PSV Eindhoven. And Jordan, he's got 4 goals, 1 assist in 16 matches played. Does not have a start. That's what shocked me. Because I thought he'd been playing quite a bit over there, but I guess he's just been subbing on.
And actually, I have to correct this. He just scored like while we were recording too, after being on for a minute. So 5 goals.
Good. All right, so 5 goals, Jordan. No starts, but 16 matches played. He's still very, very young. He's at 20 years old right now. Probably the most inexperienced of the group, that I would say. There's another one on this list that's very inexperienced as well. But Jordan, Ricardo Pepi, I don't really know where to put him. Like I don't know what to think of him right now. I just feel like he's this 20-year-old kid still trying to find his way, and I'm not sure he's quite found it since leaving Dallas.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like at Dallas, he scored 13 goals. Last year at Groningen. I don't know how to say that. When he was on loan from Augsburg, he scored 12 goals. So like he did adapt to the league. Again, he's on just a much better team. They're in first place right now, which means it's tough to break in. Like you said, no starts, 16 games, right? So his minutes is at 232 minutes, right? If you project it out to the full season, you're looking at like 400, 500 minutes. His full season last year, 2,453 minutes after 29 games played and 28 starts. So again, the downsides of being on a team that's really good is at 20 years old, they probably still see you as somebody that is in learning and not, PSV Eindhoven, if they want to win a game, they're not putting Pepi out. They're not. He came in, They were 3-1 up, he made it 4-1. That's the type of games he's going to get into and get most of his opportunities to score goals. I think this one is kind of I don't know if I would say dark horse, because I do think people probably do project him to be a figure to handle going forward. People saw it as a snub that Haji Wright got in over him. I do think Pepi has a shot at 2026. It really depends on if he can continue doing what he's doing. Maybe at some point PSV Eindhoven sells the players above him, and he is now getting the opportunity to go out there and be the figurehead. And then from there, he makes a move somewhere else. He's still only 20. And that is what I think gives me the biggest hope if I'm going to have Ricardo Pepi. Is the biggest hope is, all right, he's 2 to 3 years younger than the rest of the strikers we're talking about. And with that, he's going to he can find his feet later. We're talking about Sargent finding his feet at 23. That's 3 years for Pepi to kind of figure out. Now, he may not be 2026, right? There is an opportunity where he gets snubbed again and then ends up 2030, when he'll end up being give me 6 years from now, he'll be 26. That's the prime of his playing career. You know, so it can go either way for Ricardo Pepi. If he starts killing it, yeah, he'll be on 2026. If not, he'll be 26 years old in 2030
Yeah,
and be
that's true.
able to still kill it. Like that is he'll be at the prime of his life. So he is the one that I look at and I'm like, I would probably have him as option 3. But it really depends on how it shakes out from here on. I think he just has a good nose for goal. He's played well for the U.S. men's national team when he does play. Um, he gets those goals at times that just like after he comes on as a sub, and you're like, great, that's exactly what we needed right now. And we probably could have used that in Qatar, but I don't know. I think at such a young age, he has tons of opportunities, and he's playing in a really good team in a I don't know. It's not a top 5 league, but I would say it's probably 6 or 7 in the world. So I would, put that as, he's doing pretty well. He's produced last year at the same output he was producing in Dallas. The Eredivisie, I do think, is mostly better than Major League Soccer. So it's showing he can adapt. And then now it's just the unfortunate of being on a really good team and not getting as many opportunities.
Yeah, what a problem to have, I think, too, going forward. Because, like, we'll continue to talk about this, and we have concerns about this position. But Jordan, like you and I have talked about, like all these dudes are under 25 years old. Like in 2030, Josh Sargent will be, I think he's about to turn 24, so he'll be 30. Um, in 2030,
And that's still a great age to be
right?
playing, like to be a
I know,
striker. That
I
might be
know.
when he's playing his best. He might be the most
Yes,
experienced then.
yes. I was gonna say that's where the top strikers in the world are when they're 30 years old. Like that's it, man. Like they've reached it. That's the level. That's the pinnacle. Is right there around that age is 29, 30. That's when you have your best years. You're consistent. You're a veteran. You're that guy, right? But then they've got Balogun, who's going to be 28. They've got Cade Cowell and Ricardo Pepi are going to be 26. Like, it's great because 30, boom, 28, boom, 26, boom. Like you've got 2 year gaps. Like that's perfect. And they're finally got those generations filled in like that they've been missing. But like you said, Jordan, I think Ricardo Pepi playing in one of the best leagues outside of the top 5. I think they're out of the top 5. So Eredivisie is a solid damn league. And PSV Eindhoven is one of the best teams when it comes to competing in Champions League games. And that's where Ricardo Pepi is going to be. He's going to get some time and some run if he continues to play at PSV. So what a great spot for him. And like you said, if they sell off some of those players, and again, like this could be in 3 years that he's PSV's guy, that's the backup. And you see this so much with some of the younger kids in the European clubs where 22, 23, it's his time to shine, and baby does he roll. So he's the chosen one. He's the one that everybody before Balogun decided to come to the U.S. National team. He was the chosen one. He's the one that everybody thinks is going to be the next big thing. And I think they might be right. The kid's got unbelievable skill. So really, really excited about that one, Jordan. Another guy I'm really excited about, and it's our next on the list, Jordan, and it's been relatively recent, and he's one of those guys that could be besides Ricardo, I think he's the next big black what do you call it? Dark horse. Sorry, black horse. He's the next dark
Dark
horse,
horse,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So Brandon Vazquez, Jordan, our MLS Brandon Vazquez, well, no longer MLS former MLS star Brandon Vazquez, who's now made his move to Monterrey in Liga MX. Jordan, Brandon Vazquez was a shout for a lot of different people to possibly contend with Ricardo Pepi in 2022 to take over that roster spot because he had such a great season with Cincinnati. I can't see that. It says 18 goals. Yeah. 18 goals for Cincinnati in 2022 leading up into that season, or sorry, that World Cup, Jordan. He was phenomenal. And I really did think that he had a chance, and he played in some of those camps and he played in some of those games leading up to World Cup qualifiers. So I thought there was a good chance he could. I thought Ricardo would get over him, and nobody had any, but Haji Wright was on nobody's list. So what do you think, Jordan? Brandon Vazquez, 25 years old. He's a little bit more experienced than all the rest of them, and he's late to the scene, but he's arrived.
Well, I'll start with saying I didn't find it that shocking he wasn't called in to, the World Cup team in 2022. I know a lot of our friends at Cincy Soccer Talk were always like, "Oh, it'd be great if Brandon Vazquez was on the field at when we're down a
Yeah.
goal or whatever." But I don't think Vazquez would have really done much for us anyway in the World Cup. Part of that again is just from the way that we play. I mean, he had a down year last year, if we really want to be honest about it, right? Played 400 less minutes and scored 10 less goals, 6 less assists. Monterrey's already got 3 goals, right? Great. Awesome. Liga MX is better than MLS. I will say that when it comes to quality of play. But I I I don't know if he stays at Liga MX. I don't know how good his shot is. This probably would have been the year, right? We said 24, 25 is around the time that you would have wanted to make that jump overseas. I think he may have missed the boat at this point. You know, Monterrey is probably not going to go back and flip him to Europe like right after this season. So if he goes over like 27, 28, it might be a little tougher for him to get in there and adapt at that point, at that age. I would say this is the one I'm actually the most out on of the fact of him having a shot in 2026. Does he have a shot in Copa? Hell yeah. He's playing well for Monterrey right now. He can get in the Copa team. But when we're looking at 2 years from now, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make the squad. Again, look, if he's scoring like 20, 25 goals in Liga MX, yeah, okay, fine. Like he's going to make the team. But I just think that uh, Liga MX is a step up from MLS. It's not a huge step up from MLS, I would say, in that regard. So I'm just not sure on his trajectory right now. If 2026 he's there. Now, if he's scoring goals and playing well, I think he will be there. It's hard to say. He just moved there. He's got 3 goals. It's how many games has he played? Like
4.
4. Um, so it's tough to say at this moment for sure what how well that's going to work out for him at this pace. Yeah, he's probably going to have a shot, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think some of these offshoot tournaments, he's got a chance because of the form he's in. But Jordan, I look forward to 2026 and 2030, and I think Greg's going to want, or the next coach is going to want to put guys in 2026 roster that are also going to play in 2030. And I don't think Brandon is. I don't think Brandon goes past 2026, even if he made it in 26.
See, I think Vazquez has the great shot of being the more, I don't want to say it this way, but the more senior member. Because I do think you're going to want an
Yeah,
older guy there too. Like, I don't know if you want Sargent
it's like a
Balogun.
Wando. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if you want Sargent Balogun and Pepi. They're all like around the same age.
right.
He's at least 2 years older than Sargent, 5 years older than Balogun or something. Right, 5 years older than
Yeah,
Pepi, and like 4 years older than Balogun or whatever. Like that is a good. He might be the guy at that point that you're like, okay, we need a goal right now. Let's bring him in and see if he can get it done. But I don't think he's going to start in that role.
yeah. So that's a good point. Let's move on then, so we don't go too crazy on time. Jordan Pefok. Now, Jordan Pefok just
I'm here
injured.
for 3 hours.
I mean, honestly, that's what most radio station and podcasts are. If we were on the air for 3 hours, we could do it. Anybody who wants to sign us on. But yeah, Jordan Pefok, not you, but the other, injured Saturday, hamstring, went down, helped off the field. Jordan didn't look great. Injuries to the hammies are never good for soccer players. They tend to stick around, as Josie Altidore knows. He is 27. I didn't realize that. That was wild to me. He might be 28. FotMob is weird how they do their ages. I'm not gonna. I guess let me pull it up just because it's right here. Let's see. It says 27 on his stats. Oh, now it's getting redirected. Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna go 27, 28. He is on the edge, Jordan. He's 3 years now older than Brandon Vazquez, almost 3 years older than Brandon Vazquez. I like Jordan Pefok. I don't know if you can rely on him injury wise. I think there's been times where he's struggled to get on the pitch with different teams. He's been hurt in some season. Like it For me, if I'm looking at this list, besides Brandon Vazquez, I'd say he's the lowest on my list. Like, I feel like Pefok, and people argue, well, he's done it pretty well at a consistent level the last couple of years, but like not enough for me to go. He's going to do that consistently for the United States because he never did.
I mean, his 24-year-old season and 25-year-old season, he's playing in the
Right.
Swedish league, young boys, scores 12 goals and 22 the next year.
And they're good. Yeah.
Then he goes to the Bundesliga, though, and he scores 4. He scores 0 due to an injury, right? Or then he transferred to Mönchengladbach
Yeah, it was
and
a weird
has
transfer.
4. I kind of think that's his level. It's like maybe 4, 8 goals in a top league like that. I don't think he's good enough. I don't. When he was scoring the goal so much for young boys, you're like, okay, yeah. Like sometimes when somebody's on fire, even if they're in like the worst league ever, you get them in because they're not worried about like they're just gonna have that confidence. They're like, oh, I've put like 57 past the 5th tier. I'll do it here too. They don't care. But sometimes that can backfire too, where then they're like just totally outmatched. And I think he's not going to be. I don't think he has a shot at the age he's at, 27. He's still adjusting to, I guess, the Bundesliga. He's been there for what, 2 years um, so far. 8 total goals in 45 games. And he's not getting a lot of playing time either. 14 matches, but only 824 minutes. Only 9 of those games has he gone on average 90 minutes. I don't know. I don't think he has much of a shot.
No, I don't either. He was one on the list. I was like, it doesn't sit right with me.
It felt like
Because
2022 was the opportunity to be like the
yes,
third man instead of Haji, and that was it.
yep, and he wasn't. So, moving on to said Haji Wright and Jordan. I just sent you this tweet. He scored again today. Last couple seasons, Jordan 13 goals in 20 and 2021 with Sorn Donetsk. 15 goals in 21-22 with Antalyaspor, 16 in 2022 and 2023 with Antalyaspor, and 11 and counting with Coventry City in the championship. Jordan, what do you think about Haji Wright? He was a complete surprise, I think, for many of us in 2022, but a nice surprise. He had one of the goals, one of our 3 in 2022's World Cup. But honestly, when I was looking at it, he really was the most threatening of the bunch. Like I felt like he had more runs and got in behind more lines than I think any of them did in 2022, and that includes Josh Sargent, who I thought was pretty decent in his showing. But what do you think? Haji Wright, does he have a good chance to make 2026 roster?
I think he has another opportunity to be a dark horse. Yeah, I mean, like he's playing well at Coventry City right now, which is in the championship, same level as Sargent, right? Um, this name takes me back, man. I remember him on the Cosmos, okay, in 2015.
Oh
I
wow!
remember him on the Cosmos.
Ding dang!
People hyping him up as he goes to Schalke um, to play for their U19 team, and then it just like you never heard much of him until he went, and you find out he's in the Turkish league scoring goals, and you're like, oh yeah, that's where he went now, huh? I didn't realize that's where Haji Wright ended up. But yeah, I totally remember him when he moved over to Schalke, and then
That's wild.
yeah, he was scoring 11 goals in their U19 team, and everybody's like, he's gonna be our guy. And look, maybe if we made the World Cup in 2018, he goes there for some experience or something. But we missed that one, and then it just kind of felt like he's going around. He's staying at Schalke for a bit. He gets loaned to Sandhausen, goes back to Schalke. He's only scoring 1 goal each. Then goes to Denmark and scores 11, and then kind of revitalized his career a bit. Goes to Turkey. Scores 14, scores 15, scores 8 in Coventry City. He's still only 25. He's got opportunities. But I think most likely no. I do think most likely no. One thing he does have going for him is 6'3", so he could be that opportunity of like, oh, we'll whip the ball into him. And the fact that he scored a goal in the World Cup this year, or last year, that you're able to say he's got World Cup experience. Maybe we should bring him along. But ultimately, I'm not sure if he's going to make it.
Yeah, it's a shame. He's 26, going on 26, I think. So this is, I think 22 might have been his last ride because I think that in 2026 there's going to be more enticing players for Greg to pick from. And like you said, Jordan, there's probably definitely somebody out there that we're not even talking about in this top 10 that make that list. Like you've got the likes of, I mean, Duncan McGuire is sitting in the shadows. Like you've got different players that are young, that Soto, like you've got players that I think could break into this roster, or we have dual nationals that we don't know about until like a Balogun situation decides to play with the U.S. men's national team because the depth elsewhere is not conducive to them playing or getting playing time. So yeah, this one, Jordan, I think if we had some injuries to some of the big players, he might be some of that. He might be the one, Jordan, that you bring as far as depth piece. What's that? What happened? Are you laughing at me now? What'd you do?
No, I'm laughing at my wife. Sorry,
Oh,
she sent me the grocery list.
oh,
And so we have the just. I don't know why this is cracking me up so much.
is there a number 9 on that grocery list?
No, one of the
Oh, okay.
items is so we have like the Gatorade powder.
Oh, yeah.
One of the items on the list is pre-made Gatorade, and just the way she wrote pre-made Gatorade made me think like, yeah, like the normal Gatorade. It's just cracking me up that she referred to it as pre-made.
That's funny. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I thought she put a 9. She like, listening through the door, like, God, we need a number 9 on that grocery list. But yeah, I think Haji is a good shot if somebody gets hurt. I think he's on the outskirts, looking in. But I think Greg goes a different direction, which we'll give our top 3 here in a little bit, which we've already alluded to kind of. Next up, Jordan, is Daryl Dike, and unfortunately, Daryl looks
Yeah.
like he's torn his other Achilles. He just had Achilles surgery on the last or this last year. 2023 was riddled with injury. I think he got hurt in April of last year. Didn't play all of
Yeah.
2023. Just came back a couple weeks ago to start the new year. Knew him, and really did look good in the games that he played. He's getting back into the feel of things. But Jordan comes down with another what appears to be ruptured Achilles tendon, so it's likely he misses all of 2024, which will put him completely behind the 8 ball, not only in the club that he plays for in West Brom, but also I think it puts him behind the 8 ball in U.S. men's national team. And
Yeah.
he's not young; he's an older player, even though he's just come out of
He's
college.
23, 24,
Yeah,
right?
so he's a little older than the rest of them. Where I think the rest of them have that, that high ceiling because of they're a little bit younger. They've got more experience when they were 16. Like he was an older player coming out of college, so it's interesting to me because DK, to me, Jordan, having watched him play in Orlando, having watched him play, like he's got just raw ability. There were times where I think he struggles because he's not as skillful.
Like
He's more of a bully ball. Yeah,
technically gifted.
right. He just is so powerful, and that's his thing, and that's how he gets goals. He's just such a powerful human being. But Jordan, I just don't think it's going to hold up. I don't think his body's made for it. I'm really concerned. It's too bad because I really love Daryl. He's such a nice guy, but I don't see much promise for him going forward. And I really just he's going to be that guy that fills in every once in a while, but I just don't see him making many U.S. men's national team rosters.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the guy. He just can't stay healthy.
Right.
Orlando sold him at the perfect time. He scored 18
They did.
goals in 2 seasons, and then he scored 9 at Barnsley, on loan, and then they transferred him back over to West Brom, and then it's been hell. It's like a cursed club almost, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
what he's been
they are.
dealing with. It's hard to believe he's been there for 4 years. 2021 to 2022, he moved over there. Uh, Played 2 matches. I guess got injured. Then played some games, one game actually with the West Brom 2 due to, I guess, coming back from injury. Played 23 matches in 2022, and that was his best year. 7 goals, 1 assist. But that ended in 2023 when in April of 2023 he
Yeah.
got injured and missed 264 days. And if it is another Achilles, that's another year gone. And like you said, like while that is, his body may bounce back at some point, but the biggest issue will be that he lost approximately 2 to 3 years due to injury,
Yep.
and then having to readjust to the level and stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if this is one of those players that West Brom lets go at some point and he just ends up in a lower league or back to MLS and
Yeah.
sees out the rest of his career that way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Almost like a Josie.
That's what I was thinking. Like, has all the skill and ability in the world, so powerful and strong, and he's built like Josie. Like, but and the other real concern, like some people are like, well, I mean, they're just they're it sucks 2 injuries to the Achilles, but it's also been thigh. Like he missed a lot of time due to those thigh injuries that he has. He's had hamstring issues, and somebody
Yeah.
that big and that muscular, when you get a hamstring injury, that's a bear. He had the shoulder injury that kept him out forever in Orlando and was never really talked about, but it kept him out for a really long time. He missed 5 games in 25 days, so yeah, he's just never going to be healthy, Jordan. It's really unfortunate. I hope he does come back to MLS and he does have kind of a Josie Altidore story where he gets to at least, score 8 to 10 goals for a team somewhere.
Gets
But
healthy.
yeah,
That's the thing. Like, I think he can still have a career. His body can bounce back. But I don't know how many times West Brom is going to be like, we got to keep running this guy out there. Because it's going to, at some point, they're going to be like, we can't rely on him to be a guy that even subs in. He subbed in yesterday and got hurt. Like, for them, it's going to get frustrating in the sense of part of our depth right now is going to a player that can't stay on the field. If we had somebody that could, maybe that guy is coming in and scoring goals and we're going back
and they're
up the
promoted.
table. Yeah. So instead, that's what's going to end up cycling with him a bit, I think.
Yeah. Great point.
Because they're fifth. They're fifth in the league.
Yeah. Fifth, fourth, like that's where they sit usually. And then when they're not promoted, like they're never a team that gets torn all the way down. They always are competitive.
No, the lowest is like 10th, right? When they were there last. And
right.
It just sucks that 3 years ago he had such a promising part with Barnsley. And you're like, okay, he'll go back to Orlando. Orlando played him for a bit. They flipped him for more money with West Brom. And then it's just falling apart.
I am concerned, Jordan, that maybe too many games too fast for him was the issue. And you hate to say that, but like,
well, he
never had an off season. He didn't. He played for 2 years straight. Like, and that's when he got hurt, which is really unfortunate. I don't want to blame it on that. And I think he did have some injury history in college as well, but nothing like this. Like,
because he came in at 19 after college. And I think he had maybe 1 year at college then, right? And then just playing 17 matches, 19 matches, 18 matches. And then,
without a break, right?
Without a break too, because he went from Orlando to Barnsley, and then Barnsley back to Orlando because the seasons are flipped. And that was probably part of the problem. That's 3,600 some minutes I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Or more.
That's insane.
It's a lot.
All right, on to the next one, Jordan. Jeremy Ebobisse. An interesting one that a lot of people had on their list because he didn't really feature too much with them leading up into qualification for 2022, and he didn't get anywhere
near it. How is he still only 25 years old?
I know, isn't that nuts? Yeah, isn't that nuts? Like, I think because he was 18 when he started with Charleston. I remember him in Charleston. Like, he was he was a big deal. And it's funny.
Yeah, and then Portland, that's 2017. That's 7 years ago, and I'm watching him then.
Yeah, it seems like he's been around forever, right? Like, he seems like I thought he was the age of the Charas. That's how old I thought he was. But I think that's because just how long the Charas have been here and how long he was with them. Because he's been there that was pretty much who he spent most of his time with until he was San Jose,
2017 to 2021.
Right, he was there forever, it seemed like. So, I don't know. Like, Jeremy's always just been around. He's that guy, right? He's always around. Interesting because I think he fits well with Luchi Gonzalez in San Jose. I think he's going to play pretty well. I think he'll actually get more goals because Cade Cowell's out of the way. But I don't think Jeremy is a legit contender for anything but, maybe a Camp Cupcake or, a camp where some of these guys just can't do it. Or in the summer when these European clubs aren't playing, or these guys aren't playing in European, they're like, you know what? Let's just call Jeremy in to see what he's got. But he's like a Brandon Vazquez to me. I think he's all but done with the U.S. men's national team. I think he just gets some random appearances.
No, I agree. I don't think Ebobisse really has a shot. 2019 maybe, when he was scoring 11 goals with Portland and he was 21 years old, and you're like, oh, maybe let's see how this develops. But Portland, for some reason, was like averse and allergic to playing him. So he goes to San Jose. He's playing well. 17 goals, 10 goals. 25 years old, though. I don't know if this is like one of those like Gold Cup next year during the Club World
Yep,
Cup. He has a perfect
exactly.
shot at type thing.
Are we good to move on from
Yeah,
him? I know
we got
that's sad.
the
Yeah.
last name here.
Now, this one's a real interesting one to me. And this one has been a real interesting one to many people, even San Jose, who couldn't figure him out. Jordan, he was 15 years old when he made his debut. His professional debut was at the USL level with Reno. 15 years old. 16 years old, Jordan made 17 appearances at San Jose. And yes, we're talking about the glorious Cade Cowell with his lovely blonde hair, blonde mullet, whatever he's got going on down there. He's riding the backs of different superstars down there in Liga MX. Like he's that ingrained into the club already. The kid's having a blast. He's on Twitter and TikTok blasting all the haters because I guess the San Jose were relentless, the fans, with him, and some of the U.S. men's national team, of course, on Twitter were relentless with him. But Cade Cowell, Jordan, he's played okay with Chivas Guadalajara. Do you think that this continues, or do you think that Cade Cowell is just who Cade Cowell has been for San Jose? And and he's very young. Like that's the one thing I'll that create some hesitancy, and I'll warn people about. He's only 20. Like the kid's only the same age as Ricardo Pepi, and I think he's more of a mean streak than Ricardo Pepi. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on Cade because I think we have a lot of debate on this whenever we used to talk about San Jose.
I mean, he's got potential.
Yeah.
It's just I'm kind of in the wait and see camp because
Yep.
he was so hot in the sense of people being like, "Oh, this is the next guy," and then like scores like 3 goals, 5 goals for a season, and you're like, "Okay, it's not tearing it up like Pepe was. It's not Jesus
Yep.
Ferreira levels." If we're gonna bring somebody from MLS or like, I would even say probably if you're bringing somebody from Liga MX right now, you're probably bringing Brandon Vazquez. But when look, playing that game against Forge, right, in the Champions Cup, gets 2 goals and an assist in that game.
Yeah.
So played pretty well in that, but also you're like, well, take into account the opponent. I don't know. He is still young, so I think he has time to make an impact on this team. I don't know if it's 2026. He might be another Pepe 2030 situation where maybe he plays at Chivas for a couple years and then plays well enough that he does get the move to Europe and is playing and scoring goals. Not saying that he can't have a career playing. Like if he goes again like Vazquez and he's scoring a lot of goals in Chivas in Mexico, then yeah, he's probably going to always have an opportunity to get called into the team. But I just don't know if 2 years from now he's one of our options. I think he's still maybe 2020, 2030, somewhere around there.
Yep, I totally agree with you. I think 2030 is more his opportunity, and I don't think he's better than some of those names you list. I don't think he's better than Balogun, who's going to feature in 2030. I don't think he's better than Ricardo Pepi, who's going to feature in 2030. Josh Sargent might be there because he's that veteran presence that you need. I would be shocked if he makes any of the U.S. men's national team rosters for the World Cup. To be quite honest with you, because I just don't think he's consistently doing it like Ricardo and them are. And even when he features U.S. men's national team, at least Pepe's scoring. Josh is scoring, Balogun's scoring. When Cade gets out there, he doesn't score. And some of this, Jordan, will come down to the Olympics team because a lot of these guys will play for the U.S. men's national team for the Olympics. So you're going to get to see
another thing
Cade
we have
Cowell
to cover this summer.
Right. I was going to say there's a lot coming up this summer because Cade Cowell and them will all be there with the U.S. men's national team. So we got split squads that are going to happen, I believe, because the way they kind of line up. So that'll be interesting because they'll pull some of the younger guys over. But I don't know. Jordan, there's some outliers, of course, but we're not going to get into them. If you want to drop those in the comments below, that's great. But Jordan, let's get into our depth chart. Like, who is the top three? Who's the top three for Jordan going forward in 2026 as far as the World Cup's concerned?
I think my top three would be Sargent. Sargent's got to be number 1 or 2, and I would have Balogun as the other 1 or 2, and then I'm probably taking Pepi. If I needed somebody to score a goal, though, maybe because I don't know, the third striker is usually not going to do much, but I would say my other option would be probably Brandon Vazquez, but he is a little more older and a little more prepared, I guess.
Yeah, so I think the first two are interchangeable at this point, Balogun and Sargent. I think it's just a matter of who's going to be hot at that point. I think those are the two that you're looking at as playing 1-2 to the fiddle there. I think it's likely to be Balogun if he continues to progress. I think Jordan, because he's just such an interesting option, and I think playing with this system, he actually fits better than Josh. But and because of the pace up front that we're going to have with Timothy Weah, with Christian Pulisic, with Gio Reyna, with Weston McKennie, like those are some fast paced, let's knock their doors in kind of guys. And Sargent's a little bit obviously slower than Balogun's a better athlete. So that's where I think it is. It's a toss up for third for me right now. I would say it's in between Haji Wright and Pepi. I really like the way that Haji played, but I think looking forward in 2 years, I think Ricardo Pepi will be there. Like, I think he's pissed off enough for missing it last time. He made that very clear when he missed the last U.S. men's national team roster. And I think it would be brilliant to bring in Pepi if you think he's going to be the next one in behind Balogun. Like, once Sargent moves on, Pepi will be there. And he will be the one competing, I imagine, with Balogun. So I think that's where you go in that situation. And Haji Wright fills in if any of those are injured. And then you have Jesus in your back pocket, too. Which Jesus could feature Jordan as more of like a
that's what I was thinking. Like,
winger.
Jesus might get converted to like a deeper 9
like Jordan Morris.
A wing or anything like that. I could see him getting the call up there and be listed as a midfielder on the sheet, but who knows? But I wouldn't have him as my out and out 9.
Yeah. So I think, Jordan, we're in a consensus. I think we probably will say right now, if we're taking 3, it'd be Balogun, Sargent, and Pepi.
Yeah.
With Haji Wright being next up if somebody's hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe Brandon Vazquez. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd probably bring Vazquez over Haji. Well, no. Okay. Haji's doing well in the championship. So I don't know. Probably Haji, yeah.
Yeah. There would be debate, I think. But yes, I think the top 5 are pretty clear for us, which is cool because I thought, when I was doing this list, I was like, I think we can do this. Like 5 should be easy.
What if I just brought to the table like a 14-year-old phenom? Like, it's this guy. What about
Ezekiel Soto? Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Because he's another name. He's 19 years old that you'll have to watch. I forget exactly where he is. I want to say Dallas. It seems like Dallas has everybody. I'm just guessing at this point. I forget exactly where. No, he's international. I don't know. Dallas probably sold him. Anyway, Jordan, this was called State of the Union. I think that's what we're going to call this series, State of the Union Strikers edition. So look forward to doing this with the rest of the positions. I don't think there's going to be that much debate. I think it'll be more debate of like who the fringe players are on the wings until we get towards the defense, because I think there's some great debate on the back line. There even might be I think there's a really great debate on. We've got some really good goalkeepers.
I think goalkeeper is big. If you look past striker, I think goalkeeper is the next one up in the air because
Matt's not been great,
and sometimes not playing, and then I mean you're running into some issues with that. So
you've got some really great young goalkeepers in Gaga and Brady. Like you've got some damn good choices coming up, but they're young. Zach Steffen's always going to be.
And I don't know if you'd ever want to go young in a goalkeeper at a World Cup anyway. So I think you would probably still lean someone like Turner or Steffen, especially if he plays well in Colorado. But that stuff we'll save for another time. All right. Well, that wraps up the State of the Union U.S. Men's National Team Strikers episode here. So make sure you follow us at Stateside Show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Threads, all those good places. You can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to get more YouTube content. Our fun kit watch episode where we are going to rank the kits of the 2024 MLS season is going to be coming out in the next couple weeks here before the season kicks off. So make sure you look out for that, and tier lists that we're going to be doing with like soccer crests or mascots, all that good stuff that you should be keeping an eye on in the future. Also, you can email us, statesiteshow@gmail.com. Make sure you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more people find the show, which is always good for you and also good for listeners, because then listeners might then be prompted. If we have more listeners might be prompted to send us feedback, which then helps better the show, or at least ask questions that we can ponder on episodes like today. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time when we have our last Eastern Conference preview as we gear up for the 2024 MLS season.